towns and cities the world over, a struggle is going on behind the lines, a struggle of civilians to determine which side can best endure the pinch of wartime shortage. Over their black bread and ersatz coffee, the people of Berlin are remembering the lean years of the last war, when they crowded round the locomotives, begging for a lump of coal, when even circus animals were drafted into service. And now, once again, the German warlords are mobilizing all their scientific ingenuity to make a long siege tolerable for their people, are promoting throughout the Reich campaigns of conservation, enforced by savage discipline. Use less or go without. Everywhere the story is the same. In Russia, women cook amid the wreckage of their homes, and children dream back to the days when there were toys. In the bomb-scarred cities of once comfortable England, the needs of war have stripped the stores and streets of things that formerly seemed changeless and familiar. And even in the New World, rich beyond all Europe's dreams, the lessons taught by total war have brought a new order of civilian frugality, an order in which all have cheerfully accepted a philosophy of cut down, make do, and get along with less. But in the great military stores behind the wartime scenes, the tightening of civilian belts has created for the armed forces a wealth of equipment never known before. 500,000 yards of wool to clothe every one of 100 combat divisions. 5,000 vehicles to move one division from base to embarkation point. 18 tons of shipping to transport every man to battlefronts across the sea. In these astronomic figures of global supply, the civilian who goes without his comforts now sees the guarantee of victory in days to come. And watching the increasing flow of lend-lease and mutual aid made possible by their acceptance of rationing and shortage, watching the squadrons of new planes taking off for the perilous flight to distant China and the heavy-laden freight pulling out for the long haul to Russia, the people are realizing that the restrictions of today are pointing to a new era of plenty in the peace to come, when all the natural wealth and human skill now mobilized for war can be released for the service of the common man. With the giant producing power of the New World now at heights unknown before, some observers are prophesying a gloomy post-war future, are holding that when victory is won, our economy will be faced with a crisis of so-called overproduction. These observers are recalling how in former periods of great productivity, the panic fear of producing too much would suddenly sweep across the land, how it would suddenly seem logical to waste our substance and destroy our goods if we could not find a market for them. They are saying that it will be one of the hardest tasks of government and industry to prevent a return to those times of depression when throughout a world potentially abundant there was want and hunger, because we feared that the price of plenty might be too low. They are are saying that once the urgency of war has passed, we may again, in fear of our vast productive powers, be tempted to return to those days when we mistook the symbols of wealth for the living reality, when in burying our gold against an uncertain future, we in fact bury the true wealth of our land, its energy, its resources, its power to produce for human needs. And they are warning that it was this tendency to regard money as the sole measure of wealth that caused us at first to underestimate our deadly enemy, Japan, whose one objective was to seize and control the human and natural resources which are the true foundations of all power. But today, from the nerve centers of wartime North America, from Washington and from Ottawa, there has spread to the ends of the continent a change of attitude towards our wealth so deep that many believe that even after victory, there can be no returning to the fears and uncertainties of yesterday. For out of the urgent demands of global strategy and supply has come a new and bolder concept: total use of resources for total production, wisely planned. All across the Western world, this new creative attitude is taking concrete shape. It is seen where the steam shovels are biting open the new ore beds for the mineral needs of a coming age. It is seen across the spaces of Canada, where the construction teams, sometimes working at 40 below, have raised in 3 short years a new industrial pattern, a new industrial nation amid the forests of the north. It is seen wherever the giant new dams have spread their concrete cliffs across river and lake and gorge, harnessing power enough to produce more aluminum than the rest of the world could make before the war. It is seen in the planned distribution of materials to each nation, to each plant, according to the need. And in the factories, a glimpse is opening of a new world in the making, where today the gleaming bombers move down the assembly lines. Tomorrow will go the multi-motor transport for the airways of a world at peace. For in these wartime plants of North America, with their machine tools of size and complexity unbelievable to the layman's eye, stands the proof that if the will to achievement is once fired, there is no limit to the creative genius of the engineer. And releasing all its vast productive strength, the Western world has made a new discovery, that out of the stern demands of war can come the vision of a greater future. And just as in the factories, so in the fields the old order is swiftly changing. For with nations under arms to feed today and half of Europe to be provided for tomorrow, agronomists are seeking new methods of conserving that irreplaceable source of wealth, the soil itself. With the call for richer and more varied crops, farmers everywhere are mastering new techniques that the earth may yield a more intensive increase. And as science marches across the land and the new creative era sets its mark on the very face of the continent, there dawns at last that long-awaited day when there will be food enough for every human need. Now, with the new demands of wartime transportation, the veil of hemispheric distance is being drawn aside. From the dark green forests of the equator, through the once impenetrable jungles of Panama, through the Sierras and the Rockies, to where the furthest frontiers of Canada's northwest merge with the white silence of Alaska, the great new highways are driving on through obstacles only recently held insurmountable. And if human will to do and dare can make reality overnight of projects such as these, then the intercontinental land routes of tomorrow will surely link in a single sweeping train every nation from the slopes of the Andes to the steppes of European Russia. With such a future opening before us, the order to attack has taken on a deeper meaning. And many are saying that when the soldiers of North America set foot on European ground, the old world, so long swept by plundering armies, saw in these men from the new conquerors so certain of their own hopeful destiny that they demanded not what they could take, but what they could give. No wonder that the Germans, looking out upon a philosophy of conquest so different from their own, are driving their forced labor to secure the crumbling walls of fortress Europe. No wonder that they, who so recently despised what they called our Maginot mentality, should now become its strongest advocates themselves. But at this hopeful time, when the gleaming equipment of our armed forces betokens our newfound productive strength, responsible authorities are sounding a note of warning. They point out that the riches of the new world are not inexhaustible, that the key to future power lies in wise conservation now of all that real wealth on which a nation's energy depends in war and peace alike. They are warning that if our resources continue to be consumed with the recklessness of bygone days, then our present material might will turn to dust and ashes, and our dreams of a great creative future will fade for lack of substance. And they are saying that never in the years to come can we afford to return to those displays of extravagance and waste when we misuse the abundance of our land to stage a passing show. Even in the great war plants of today, for all the speed and strain of work, they are considering it very much worthwhile to salvage scrap metal from the lathes and to save the sweepings from the factory floors. And in communities throughout the nation, folks who have never forgotten, even in times of plenty, that the greatness of this continent was built on the people's resourcefulness and thrift, are giving the lead to a universal effort to make and mend, to use and use again. It is spreading this determination to conserve resources to industrial areas, where war workers have organized the transportation pools to save gasoline urgently required elsewhere. It is seen on the main street of every country town, where unwanted odds and ends are collected up for mutual exchange. It is seen on the land itself, where farmers are meeting to discuss ways and means of overcoming shortages by pooling manpower and machines. It is seen even on the battlefront, where the salvage squads, assembling captured gear, are well aware that the enemy's losses are our gain. And out of a universal search for scrap, there has emerged from a million cellars and attics the most ruthless lesson of these ruthless times, that when a nation puts forth its full productive strength, brass and tin and stainless steel are currencies as vital as paper bills and promissory notes. And some conservation experts claim that if this flow of raw materials from user back to source, this constant circulation of the small change of a people's real wealth can become an integral, instinctive part of our way of life, then just as we have the substance to fulfill the needs of war today, so we shall have sufficient and to spare to realize the rich creative era of tomorrow. Already we know that with our massive powers to produce, we can recreate in a few short years all the material devastation of the war. We know, too, that the grim necessities of battle have brought forth an inventiveness in new materials and designs so swift and varied that the peaceful progress of former days seems poor and slow beside it, that we are living in a period when men's minds are fertile and dynamic beyond the norm. And though many of the blueprints of tomorrow's world must still remain closely guarded military secrets, yet even now we can catch a glimpse of what it holds in store. The traffic of its aerial streets, the streamlined greyhounds of its global highways. In every land, the fighting men, they who well know the cost of human hope, are demanding that out of their struggle to rid the earth of fear and want, the foundations of this true order of the people shall in perpetuity be laid. Behind the roar of furnaces and the beat of hammers sounding through history's darkest hour, the promise of that order is rising clear and bright, an order in which the great new forces of human and material energy, freed from the timid hesitations of the past, will build to the people's plans with all the people's wealth. And to the oft-repeated question, what will be the shape of the post-war world? Men and women whose eyes have seen the vision of our times are making this simple answer. Look around you. It is taking shape already. The tide of man's creative will is flowing once again. Tomorrow's world is here.